welcome to the Tea and a Butty podcast. I'm Dominic.
And I'm Erica.
Today's episode, we're going to be talking about Operation Fourth Bridge, which is the funeral of Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. We're going to be talking about...
Why Fourth Bridge?
Because it was, I guess... they're all named after a bridge. I mean, the Queen is Operation London Bridge.
Is that the name of a bridge? The Fourth Bridge?
Yeah, we talked about this.
When?
In a couple of podcasts ago, you remember we talked about this, about the Fourth Bridge in Edinburgh. Goes across the
area.
The Firth of Forth.
Oh God, yeah, all of that nonsense.
All of that. Well, yeah,
Okay.
Their funeral, the dissemination of information, and all that, and all the chain of events and state funeral or whatever. It wasn't a state funeral. It was, well, obviously with COVID, it wouldn't be anyway. It was just like a ceremonial funeral.
Yeah, let us know if you watched it. It came on in the United States. I think it was like 9:30 a.m. Eastern time it started. Yeah. So it started at 8:30 over here
3 o'clock in the UK.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I mean, it was on for hours before that. They started at midday, I'm sure.
Yeah.
With coverage of it and everything.
Well, we saw the
rolling people out to talk about it.
The BBC coverage on YouTube, didn't we? And it was like 4 hours
long. It was 4 hours long. I mean, and you think about it, I mean, this kind of live coverage hasn't... I mean, I'm not really sure if they did that for, like, Princess Diana's funeral.
I seem to think they did.
The Queen Mother's funeral, maybe. But really, I think it was like, when you look them up, because we kind of like looked up all of the funerals dating back to King George V.
After we watched Philip's funeral,
the live coverage of that with Hugh Edwards was...
we went on a funeral binge. It was a very exciting Saturday for us.
We just went like down a YouTube hole, and you've been down them before.
We're like, what sounds really good to watch this Saturday? A bunch of people's funerals.
Bunch of royal family funerals.
Yes.
Because, I mean, it wasn't just anybody's funeral, we weren't just plugging into that, But,
I'm weird like that, though. I like historical, like, anything, so it's interesting to me, I would probably watch some random person's funeral from, like, 1930s, I would probably find it
Queen Victoria's funeral's on there.
What?
Yeah. Hugh Edwards.
They didn't have video. When did she die?
1901.
Did they have video then? I mean, It would have been silent, I guess. But...
Yeah, but they still had Hugh Edwards.
Hugh Edwards, I don't know who that is. So that
he was
lost on me.
He was anchoring the coverage of Prince Philip.
Oh,
Philip's
the Welsh
funeral.
guy.
And yes,
yeah.
And no, he wasn't. I mean, it was just it's silent footage and everything, and the procession.
Why didn't we watch that?
Well, because we only went back to George V.
You watched it on your own then, did you?
I just watched it just now.
How dare you?
Because I just went on the YouTube and just looked up, to like familiarize myself with events and stuff. And I was just like, oh yeah, there, and you start clicking things like the funeral of George V, the funeral of Edward VII, all that kind of stuff, And I was like, oh, who else's
funerals can I watch?
But yeah, Queen Victoria's was on there. And then I got into like one of those things where you get fascinated with like, oh, what was the earliest film ever recorded?
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, what was the earliest film of the royal family? And I guess it was Queen Victoria,
Oh, was it?
Where she was being pulled about in a little like cart with all her grandchildren around. It was about 1896.
She was being pulled about by
it was in like a little dog cart.
Yes, with all the grandchildren.
She was. The grandchildren were running around and everything, and you could see her, and it was it was a horse kind of thing. It was like a tiny cart just designed for her.
It was like a wheelchair type
kind
thing?
of like a wheelchair, because I mean, yeah, she was. Yeah. How old was she when she died? 40.
I thought you were serious at first. I was like, no.
How old was she? She was in it. She was in her 70s, I think, wasn't she?
I think so, at least.
Yeah, but I mean, she was not getting around,
70s, 80s. Yeah, she was older.
Yeah. But anyway, Prince Philip's funeral.
We digress.
We digress on the subject of royal funerals. This one, Operation Fourth Bridge, it was a plan detailing the procedures, including the national mourning and everything, And he had, they plan this for years in advance. Once you hit a certain age, they start going, it's time for your funeral plan. They've done this with the Queen.
Yeah.
They've done this with...
that should be true for everyone, really.
Probably done it with Charles, even.
Most people...
They start updating, they go, okay, what do you want? And, have you got any wishes that we can accommodate? And you're going to have a state funeral or a ceremonial funeral.
I'm of the mind that everybody should plan their funeral.
Yeah.
Just to save their loved ones having to do it when they go, It's like, it's nice. Then your family knows exactly what you wanted, if you want specific things. Some people don't care. Some
people just throw me in a box.
Do whatever you want.
Throw me in the ground.
It's like, I'm gone.
Bury me at sea, bury me in space, wherever. I haven't thought about it really, but yeah, I think I'd like my ashes to be shot up into the...
Oh, well, good space. Luck with that.
Well, yeah, you can do it. You can see Erica now in a little spacesuit going trying to get it all out, trying to get my ashes out, trying to scatter them. But yes.
But yeah, so they had a state funeral planned for Philip, I'm assuming.
They
at some point.
It's usually reserved for monarchs only, a state funeral.
Oh, okay.
So it would have been just a ceremonial funeral.
But they would have had a much bigger
They would have had it
planned.
they would have had it coming from London to Windsor.
Yeah.
Well, actually he died at Windsor Castle, so it was easy enough to transport him to George's, chapel, which is hallowed ground and rich in monarch history. I think the earliest one, it dates back to William the Conqueror. Windsor Castle.
Said that, didn't they?
1066.
Well, I don't know about that castle, but Windsor as the seat of the royals.
Yeah. That's where it would have been.
Yeah.
Started, and then they've just,
I don't
built
think that exact castle's been there since 1066.
I think it was abandoned during Henry VIII's time. Because he preferred to be in Hampton Court and other places and Leeds Castle and all this other stuff. And then during the reign of Charles II, I think that's when Windsor started coming back up as a royal seat.
Just to slightly go off track here as usual. I thought something interesting from everything they were saying was that they basically indicated that they knew he was dying, right?
Well, yes.
Because
he'd gone into hospital over the years since...
obviously you're 99, you know it's coming sooner rather than later.
It was a shame he couldn't hang on till 100.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what everybody was saying.
He didn't care,
only a few months shy of 100.
2 months, yeah.
Yeah.
It was June. But, they knew he was going, I think.
Yeah.
They had that procedure a couple of months ago. It was a month ago, something like that. And he went into hospital and he stayed. And then the whole, scandal with Harry and Meghan blew up with the Oprah interview and everything. The whole controversy surrounding that, 'cause it's not really a scandal. We knew about it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't know what was the subject, but anyway. So there was that, and Harry attended the funeral, if you didn't know.
Yeah.
But without Meghan, who was advised not to because she's heavily pregnant.
Do you think she was actually advised not to, or do you think there's any chance that they were like, "You come, leave her at home"?
I think it was a case of Meghan was like, "Yeah, I'm not going there just to be sneered at."
Yeah. She made the right choice.
I'm not sitting there.
Yeah.
With a mask on, being sneered at from behind all the other masks,
Yeah.
And also it'd be a press frenzy. So many would be at Windsor trying to get a shot of them talking with William and Kate or Charles or whoever,
Yeah.
So
that's not what it was about.
It was about Prince Philip. Yeah.
So we can back up if you want to and talk about the funeral was originally apparently going to have been bigger.
It was going to be bigger. It was going to be procession through the streets.
But when COVID hit...
The Land Rover was supposed to be, that he designed. He designed this specially designed Land Rover. He was working with them since about 2003 on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
And he got together with them and he was like, I want this Land Rover to be my hearse.
Yeah.
Because I love Land Rovers. It reflects my military history and everything. And that's what the whole service did. It had hymns from, about the sea and stuff because he was in the Royal Navy.
Yeah.
And that was, that it's kind of like thinking about it, it's like, yeah, that's who I was before it was all. If you watch The Crown, it's like taking everything from me,
Yeah.
And now I've got to be this guy.
Yeah, now we're rewatching The Crown, you guys. We're well and truly in it.
We're well and truly in this. We're deep in the hole of The Crown now.
I was just like, the first season of The Crown really, there's a lot of emphasis on Philip. So I was like, let's rewatch that because I find it interesting. His whole kind of story and everything.
In the first season, yeah.
Yeah.
Matt Smith portraying him, yeah.
Yeah,
Claire
he did
Foy
a great
as the
job.
Queen, yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's like, that's who I was, or was it like, that's who I am, ultimately.
He was in the... What happened... Yeah, I mean, we talked about this in the last episode. In the last episode about Duke of Edinburgh. He was born, and then he was exiled, and his family was kind of like... His family life was very fractured.
Yeah.
Growing up.
Mm-hmm.
His sisters married into German aristocracy and became... Nazis, yes, because of what was going on over there. He was educated mainly in England under the stewardship of Lord Mountbatten. And
who was his uncle, right?
Who was his uncle, yeah. And, and it was just kind of like through him, it was kind of like, he was introduced to Elizabeth and then on,
Yeah.
He renounced all his titles and he became... Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, and then he was eventually Prince Philip.
Yeah, and they had all of those titles reflected on the.
On his personal standard. Yeah.
No.
Oh,
I'm talking about all the jewels.
Oh no, that was all his medals and. Stuff
yeah, but they're all part of his they go with his titles and stuff, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm not sure what all.
Grand orders
they were, but if you guys watched the funeral,
Order of the Cross, and
you'll know what you'll know what I'm talking about. On the altar behind the
Dean of Windsor and the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Yeah, they had all these I guess they were pillows with the jewels pinned on and the sashes and everything.
I mean they'll just go back into the royal collection now, into the Crown's collection.
The Crown, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the Duke of Edinburgh, now who inherits, is it Charles?
Charles now becomes the Duke of Edinburgh until he's king.
Until he's king, and then he can bestow it on Edward.
Yeah, and they've already talked about that. Edward is the youngest of Queen Elizabeth's kids, but Queen Elizabeth and the Duke of Edinburgh both had to be dead, and Charles has to be king for Edward to then become the Duke of Edinburgh.
Yes.
Which is very crazy because until then, the person that is going to become the king will be Duke of Edinburgh for whatever reason. I don't.
It's only the monarch who can bestow the title. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And we were talking about his.
And then William also will become Prince of Wales then.
Yeah, William will be Prince of Wales. Yeah. He'll be made Prince of Wales, and I mean, I'm presuming he'll be invested as it. And Harry will still remain Duke of Sussex.
Did they not strip them of that? They're still calling them that.
He's still the Duke of Sussex. He's I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, because they say, they stripped them of their titles, but then the news anchors, when Harry was there, was like, the Duke of Sussex.
He's still the Duke of Sussex.
Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, yeah.
And she's still the Duchess of Sussex.
Yeah.
I mean, they say they don't care about the titles and they don't care about having them. And just call me Harry and Megs, Haz and Megs.
Yeah. Has.
That's what she calls him, is Has there. And, oh, yeah, you know.
That's a podcast unto itself.
Yeah.
Britain's obsession with nicknames.
Has and Megs and everything, you know. But, I mean, that, you know, you're watching the first season of The Crown. I mean, if you're a royal watcher and you like the royals, you've probably already seen The Crown.
Mm-hmm.
It tells the story in part of the abdication of Edward VIII, who was known as David to everyone else. I mean, that was his royal title.
That was his real name.
Yeah, David was his real name. And Albert was King George VI's real name.
Mm-hmm.
So he abdicated, and Albert became king in 1937. And he became King George VI.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this, you know, they make it like, oh, this is all Edward's fault, you know?
Yeah.
He abdicated, and he eventually killed George
the Sixth,
because he couldn't shoulder the burden of it, and this wasn't his time to be king.
Yeah, it was sprung on him.
Yeah,
basically.
It was sprung on him, which it was.
Yeah.
I mean, he was only king for like 10 months or something.
No, 10 years.
No. Edward.
Oh.
Yeah. King George V died in early 1936.
Mm-hmm.
A controversy surrounding that too, when the doctor's diary.
Yeah, that was another YouTube video that we watched when we were in our hole on Saturday.
Well, you clicked on it and you were like, "Oh yeah, the Tyrant King. What's all this about?"
It was quite interesting. Edward and George's father, King George V.
Yeah.
Who was a very beloved king because he was king during World War One.
Yeah, he was king.
So
during
basically,
World War
it's
I.
like if you're a monarch during a war, then the public loves you.
Pretty
well, I
much.
think he went and fought, didn't he? He was like he went out there with them.
He went out there to the trenches. Yeah, he went out to the trench. He didn't go out and fight.
But he went
was
out
in the
there.
trenches. Yes.
I mean, he could have been killed though.
And you know, he had the moustache and the beard, and everyone had the moustache and the beard, and that was it. You know,
he looked the part. You know, he had a really nice looking beard and mustache. He was Queen Victoria's grandson.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And he was married to Queen Mary. His
Queen
wife
Mary
was
of
Queen
Tech.
Mary.
Yeah.
And apparently
Marlborough House. You were asking, because we watched her funeral procession, didn't we?
Queen Mary, yeah.
And you were like, oh, where's that home? And I was like, that's Marlborough House. Because he unveiled a plaque there in 1967 for her. And the Duke of Windsor, who was Edward VIII, if you can keep up with all this. He was named the Duke of Windsor after he abdicated and, you know, lived out his life in pretty much some sort of self-imposed exile.
Yeah.
Because he, you know...
I don't know if it was self-imposed. Well...
It was partially I think the Queen would have allowed him to come back, but the public would kind of like, yeah, you kind of abandoned us, and there's talk of you being a Nazi sympathizer, and Hitler wasn't such a bad chap, you know?
But getting back to George V really quickly, so we can get back to
we're going back through history here.
So we can get back to the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral. It was really interesting. You guys can look it up on YouTube and watch it for yourselves, but I just didn't know anything really about him. But apparently he was a very beloved king. He and his wife, you know, they were seen in public together. They did a lot of, you know, meeting the people and I guess charity kind of stuff and whatever. And so the people really loved them. But apparently behind closed doors, he was quite like, what would you say? I mean, they called him a tyrant. He
had a temper.
He had a very bad temper. He was very controlling of her and the children.
And you know,
emotionally abusive.
That's why Edward, the Prince of Wales, who was going to become his successor, you know, he was very much like Harry used to be.
Yeah.
Like he liked the good life.
Yeah, he liked to party and hang out with celebrities.
George V was like, nah. Yeah. You know, you can't be doing that as king. And it was just kind of like, he was just very frustrating to him. And he was just like throwing, oh, God help the country when he becomes king, you know?
Yeah.
And
he was very much Queen Victoria's grandson. He was like very like believed the royal family shouldn't be like super lavish, and you know he believed in the working man, which is kind of crazy concept for the royal family.
Yes.
But they portrayed him as being quite liberal in his thoughts, and his ideas for the country,
especially back then.
Yeah. Believed that the working man deserved a break, and and I guess made his beliefs known, which the royal family's not supposed to do.
Whereas Edward VIII was very much a king who was like, oh, I don't care about this.
Do you know who he would have been like if he had been king? I think he would have been like, what's the other one? Just not so far back. The fat one from, was it Blackadder? Is it?
The Prince Regent.
Yes.
Yeah, he would be exactly like the Prince Regent. George IV.
Spending money.
George IV, actually, yeah.
Partying.
Spending money, partying, having a wonderful time of it. You know,
taking
with
advantage
American
of
divorcee. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they say that's he abdicated to marry the woman he loved and all this, and it's kind of like it was more to do with the fact that he was not doing what they wanted him to do. There was like red boxes, like the red box, the Parliament, give them and everything. They were going left unread. He was like not wanting to do duties and all that kind of stuff. So they were just like, oh, we need to get rid of him.
Yeah.
He's not in the programmed image here, And of course, the whole, Hitler, yeah, he's not a bad chap, oh yeah. And it's like, yeah, it's...
Wah, wah.
Yeah, that was, that's what... I was a Nazi sympathizer and Wallace Simpson liked him and all this. And it was just, he was just getting involved. He was like veering between like controlling and then disinterested. So it was like, we have to like force him to abdicate.
Yeah.
And get someone else. And it wouldn't have been Albert. They were looking at a couple of the other siblings as well, but they were just like, no, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, because
it's got to be the Duke of York.
There were 4 of them as well, weren't there?
Yeah.
I think 3 boys and a girl. Yeah. Which is actually the same thing as Queen Elizabeth's kids, 3 boys and a girl. But getting back to their dad really quickly, apparently when he died, he was very sick, and was dying. And I don't know.
This is George V.
This is
now.
George V. Yeah, we're jumping around. We're super organized here. What did they say? He was very sick and was dying, and there was a doctor attending him, but they don't know for sure, or they do know for sure that the doctor basically administered a lethal dose of morphine.
A lethal injection, yeah.
Yeah.
Because, it's going to go on for hours and he'll be in agony, and so I took the decision to end it. Yeah. His diary said. And that was released in 1986, so the 50-year, secrecy statute was up.
Yeah.
From 1936, yeah.
And they're like, basically, I guess
he euthanized him.
I guess his wife knew, Queen Mary knew. Yeah. They said, and they just basically like, oh yes, he died, and they just didn't make any kind of big thing about it. Yeah. And the public didn't make any big thing about it. I mean,
it was illegal. It's illegal to do that.
It still is, yeah.
Still is, yeah.
Yeah.
So, it was like, the doctor did it, and it was like, for his own good. And it's like, well, weighing up the decision, it's like he wouldn't have survived very long, and he would have been in an immense pain.
And it's like, was he awake? Maybe he told him, just do it, We don't know. We weren't there. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. A little aside we didn't know anything about. But getting back to the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral.
The Duke of Edinburgh's funeral.
Yes.
Here we are.
Who was not
part of...
Who was not euthanized,
no,
hopefully.
he died peacefully.
Yes.
I think Sophie, Edward's wife, Countess of Wessex, said, it was so gentle. It was just like, off he went, you know?
Yeah.
And the Queen was by his bedside,
Oh, no, the Queen at the funeral. Yes. You guys who watched the funeral, that was probably the worst part. The fact that she had to sit alone because of COVID. You just wanted to squish her because she's just this little old, hunched over.
I could see you sitting with her. Just
I would have just sat with her and held her hand and just been like, it's okay, because she's just this little she's just this little old hunched over lady, and I felt like she needed
94
when she was walking in
now,
there.
isn't she?
Usually she kind of walks into a place and you forget, oh yeah, she's in her 90s, but she looked very old and frail at this
She had the
funeral,
mask
I
on,
thought.
yeah.
I felt like she needed a cane because she was quite hunched over. And then during the funeral, they had programs.
Yeah.
And so she was kind of like, is she just looking at her program the whole time? Because every time the camera shot to her, she had her head down.
Yeah.
She had her head down. You could only see the top of her hat. And I'm sure it's because she was crying. I mean, she would have to be crying. It was her husband.
Yeah.
But they're not expected to show emotion.
Out of respect for her, they didn't show the coffin lowering into the crypt, because, we saw it just kind of like going down slowly, but then they cut to the buglers doing the last post and call to action stations and everything.
Did they say that somewhere?
Yeah, they said that somewhere. They said, it was like the heartbreaking moment we didn't see.
Yeah. Huh, that's interesting, yeah. I mean, you couldn't even tell from certain angles that it was actually lowering because it was lowering so slowly, but then they'd shoot from the different angle and it was like, oh yeah, okay.
It's gone, yeah.
Yeah. And then thankfully, of course, they don't take the cameras down there because, that was the time then when they were all like, okay, for God's sake, we're not have cameras pointed at us. We can like all hug each other and cry and stuff now, like normal people.
Yeah, and then they came out and got in the car and...
It was quite sad. I mean, I felt bad even for Harry. Harry was all by himself sitting
Harry was on the same side as the Queen,
mm-hmm.
and then they had Anne and her husband, and then the Queen at the end.
No, Andrew. Andrew was there next to the Queen, but not right next to her.
Oh, I thought he was on the other side.
Mm-mm.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
No, it was like this. That was like the single side.
Oh, yeah, because Fergie wasn't there.
No.
She wasn't. She was in the Royal Lodge in Windsor, babysitting.
The kids. I wonder where all the kids. None of the kids were there.
It was Beatrice's child.
Oh.
She was babysitting him. August.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know the names of them.
Yeah. I mean, they won't. It's like.
I wondered. I mean, William and Kate's kids were not there either.
No. Because, I mean, it was only 30 people allowed in there.
Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't, then yeah, everybody would have been there.
I mean, little kids like that, you kind of want them to go so that they can understand what it's all about, what's happening and where he's gone. And, you can help them, like, understand what's happened. But at the same time, it's like, do they understand? And they're little kids, and it's a long event, and you got to keep them still and quiet. And it's just like, no,
yeah.
And, but it was a really nice.
It was simple. It was quite a simple looking service.
Mm-hmm.
Quite good for quite amazing for the royal family. I mean, it would have been. It was just a short little like procession down the sloping hill and to the chapel.
They all walk behind.
Yeah. I mean, everybody. Much has been made of William and Harry not walking together side by side, and they had their cousin in between them.
Well, that was odd,
and it's
wasn't
like,
it?
well, no, it was some sort of like, oh no, that's protocol. That would have been because I mean,
it seems weird. I don't know. I mean, if they had them in order of,
it would have been weirder if he'd not come. Let's just say that. Everybody would have been going, oh, he hasn't come. Oh
God, that would have been terrible.
Yes.
I thought maybe they had them in order of their birth. Because it sort of seemed like that with Anne and Charles were in the front.
Who decides all these things.
And then Andrew and Edward.
Yeah.
And then William but because I think Zara's the oldest, but they didn't make the girl grandchildren walk for whatever reason.
The Queen was following behind in the car,
Yeah. And there was a
with
little
lady in waiting.
There was a little old lady in the car with her, and I kept saying, "Who is that? Who's the little old lady in the car with her? It's her little friend." But she didn't apparently even get to go into the funeral. Poor thing.
Yeah, she would have gone for a cup of tea or whatever.
Yeah, they said, "Oh, she's watching from somewhere else." It's like, what?
mean, she's a lady in waiting. I mean, it would have been the Duke of Edinburgh in the car with her.
Yeah, God, poor thing. Terrible. You know,
Yeah.
it's like no matter how you feel about him, the fact is they're real life people. And they're a real life family.
Yes.
You know, and she and he had been married for what, 70-something years?
75, was it?
Yeah, that's a long time. That's longer than some people live.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like...
75, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
1947, I think they were married, yeah.
Something, I don't know,
But yes, I mean, the Harry coming without Meghan, it's very kind of like, much like the Duke of Windsor coming back for his brother's funeral.
Yeah.
You know, and he walked behind a coffin with the Duke of Edinburgh and the Duke of Gloucester, who was his brother. And, you know, he came without Wallace.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's kind of like they're trying to, like, there's a lot of parallels there,
Yeah.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the day wasn't about him, but of course, amidst this controversy and ongoing, like, you know, separation of them, put themselves in, like, you know.
You had this little idea, and I don't know if you want me to share this in the podcast.
What little
or not,
idea?
But you wondered, oh, they're gonna work on Harry while he's there. They're gonna
Probably.
be like, what are you doing? You know, come back here and
Come back to the family.
stop all this nonsense.
Come back to family.
I don't know. It's an interesting thought.
I mean, you know, it's like, as a lot of people did say, who was like, you know, before Meghan married Harry, it was a case of, like, I wouldn't blame her if she backed out.
Yeah.
Because of the history of this family.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just, you know, I mean, it was wonderful, you know, no matter how much of, like, you know, people say, oh, she's a social climber, she's, you know, trying to raise her profile, she's trying to do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you do more. No.
Yeah.
That's too much.
Yeah. You don't want to raise your profile that
and
much.
I mean, she realized that. That's why she was like, I have to get out of here.
Yeah.
You know, the racism, all that kind of stuff, and, you know, mental health and everything. It was like, yeah, it's too much, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you've just, you know, it's not like these reality TV families who are constantly having to chase the press for attention.
Yeah.
The royal family, they've got it guaranteed as long as they're there. You know?
Yeah.
And they will, even if they're
That's
kicked,
what,
even if they're cleared the deck off. You know,
who's it? Joy Behar from The View. I think
Joy Behar.
She's always saying that the royal family is Britain's celebrities. Like in America, we have actors or we have reality stars or whoever. You know, we have singers and whatever. But in Britain, the big main celebrities are the royal family. And it's just like, yeah, I guess so.
I mean, yes.
Except for they were born into that.
They were born
whether
into
they
that,
like it or not.
whether they liked it or not.
Yeah.
And, you know, Charles looked, you know, like, you was like, oh, Charles looks all like, oh, and it's like, he looks like that all the time.
Yeah, I said, oh, Charles looks really distraught. Like, the look on his face just looks like he just doesn't know what to think, you know? And Dominic said he looks like that all the time.
He looks like that all the time, and people will probably agree with me. I mean, yeah.
I think we've pretty much covered it.
I think we've covered it.
I think we covered everything, actually.
We covered all the funerals.
We're done. We're officially royal familyed out at
All
the moment.
royal familyed out, everybody.
I mean, that is until something else happens and you'll
we'll
from
talk
us.
about it before. Yeah.
But thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. We appreciate your support. Be sure and check us out on social media. We are at TButty, TEABUTTY on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we will talk to you next time.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.